My name is Melanie. Standing in the middle of the ballroom, I watch as the realization hits my family and the Ashfords like a tidal wave. The room is filled with gasps and whispers as the truth unfolds on the giant projection screen behind me. Just moments ago, I stepped out from behind the velvet curtain, holding a tablet in one hand and a stack of financial records in the other. The Ashfords had just staged a theft, framing an innocent young waitress named Lily to avoid paying the $52,000 bill for the engagement party. My sister Eva was more concerned about getting the party back on track than the injustice being done. I remember the look on Eva's face when she saw me. She let out a nervous, confused laugh and asked, "Melanie, what are you wearing? You look like you're going to a funeral. And why are you interrupting my engagement?" I simply replied, "I'm here to stop a crime." Mrs. Ashford, a haughty woman with diamonds weighing down her neck, glared at me and demanded, "Who are you? Are you with security? Check that girl's bag right now." I ignored her and walked straight to Lily. I looked her in the eye and asked gently, "What is your name?" She whispered, "Lily." "I didn't steal it. I swear." I said, "I know you didn't, Lily." Then I turned to face the room and my family. I locked eyes with Mrs. Ashford and said, "She isn't the criminal. You are." The silence in the room was deafening. Mrs. Ashford's face turned purple as she shrieked, "Excuse me, do you know who I am? I am Victoria Ashford. How dare you accuse me?" I calmly replied, "I saw you drop the bracelet in Lily's bag, and so did the camera in the corner." I pointed to the small black dome on the ceiling. Just then, Marcus, the general manager of the hotel, walked in. He bowed his head slightly and said, "Miss Melanie, I have the report you asked for." My mother gasped and asked, "Miss Melanie? Why is he calling her Miss Melanie?" Marcus turned to the Ashfords and said, "Mr. Ashford, I just attempted to run the final charge for tonight's event. $52,000. The card was declined. We tried 3 cards, sir, all declined. We also called the bank. They informed us that your accounts have been frozen due to suspected fraud." Eva dropped her champagne glass, which shattered on the floor. She looked at her fiancé, Ethan, and asked, "Ethan, what is he talking about? Tell him to fix it." Ethan looked down at his shoes and didn't say a word. I stepped forward and said, "There is no fixing it, Eva. They didn't pay for the party, and they can't pay for the wedding. They have nothing." Mrs. Ashford lunged at me, but a security guard stepped in her way. She screamed, "You're just the ugly sister, the failure. You work on the internet." I laughed dryly and said, "I do work on the internet, and I also work in real estate. Marcus, please tell my guests who owns this building." Marcus straightened his tie and projected his voice so everyone could hear. "This hotel is the flagship property of MW Ventures. MW Ventures is the sole owner of the Grand Horizon chain, and the sole owner of MW Ventures is a Miss Melanie." My family's jaws dropped as they realized the truth. My father's mouth opened and closed like a fish, and my mother grabbed a chair to steady herself. Eva stared at me, her eyes wide, and whispered, "You own this?" I nodded and said, "I own this hotel, the one in Los Angeles, the one in Miami, and all 17 of them." I took off my glasses and cleaned them on my lapel, waiting for it to sink in. I looked at my parents and said, "I didn't want to tell you because I knew if you knew, you wouldn't see me as your daughter. You would just see me as a bank account, but I can't let you be scammed by these people." I then played the recording of the Ashfords' conversation, where they admitted to their scheme and called my parents dogs and Eva a cash cow. The crowd gasped in horror as the truth was laid bare. I also pulled up the financial documents on the screen, showing the Ashfords' $3 million in debt, tax liens, foreclosure notices, and pending lawsuits for fraud. Ethan looked at Eva and stammered, "Eva, My parents said it would be okay. We just needed a little help." Eva screamed, "A little help? You were going to steal my trust fund. You were going to divorce me. She took off her engagement ring and threw it at his face. Get out. She screamed. Get out of my party. Mrs. Ashford tried to rally and said, fine. If you people are going to be so classless, we will leave. Come, Ethan. These people are beneath us. I stopped her and said, you still have a bill to pay, $52,000. She screeched, I'm not paying that. I calmly replied, I know. That's why I called the police 10 minutes ago. They're waiting at the front entrance. Theft of services, attempted grand larceny, and framing a minor for a felony. 2 large security guards stepped forward and escorted the Ashfords out of the ballroom. As they were dragged out, Mrs. Ashford was screaming obscenities. I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. The cancer was gone, but now I had to deal with the aftermath. The guests started to leave, and soon it was just me, my parents, Ava, and the hotel staff. My parents walked over to me slowly, like they were approaching a dangerous animal. My father said, Melanie, I had no idea. Why didn't you tell us? My mother forced a smile and said, we are so proud of you, honey. You own all this. That's amazing. We always knew you were smart. I looked at them and said, no, you didn't. You ignored me for 20 years. You treated me like a disappointment because I wasn't flashy like Ava. You let me live in a crummy apartment while you bought her cars. You didn't even know what I did for a living until 10 minutes ago. My father started to say, Melanie, that's not fair. I cut him off and said, it is fair. I love you because you're my parents, but I don't trust you. And I won't let you use me the way the Ashfords tried to use Ava. I then turned to Ava. She was sitting on the edge of the stage, crying. Her mascara was running down her face, and she looked wrecked. I walked over to her and sat down next to her. She didn't look at me. She just stared at her hands and whispered, I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. She sobbed, I'm so stupid. I thought I was better than you. I thought I was the prize, and I was just a mark, a fool. She looked up at me and said, you saw me in the apron. You heard what I said. I called you homeless. I said, yeah, you did. She asked, why did you save me? After how I treated you, you could have let them ruin me. It would have been funny. I replied, it wouldn't have been funny. You're my sister, Ava. You're annoying and you're selfish, but you're my sister. I'm not going to let strangers destroy your life. She broke down then. She really cried, not the fake pretty crying she did for attention. Ugly crying, with her shoulders shaking and gasping for air. I put my arm around her. It was the first time I had hugged her in 10 years. She said, I have nothing. Ethan is gone. The house is gone. Mom and Dad are. Well, they're them. I don't have a job. I don't have skills. I'm just a 24-year-old girl who knows how to spend money. I waited for her to calm down and then said, you have a choice. She wiped her nose and asked, what choice? I said, I can give you a job. She looked at me, surprised. A job like in marketing or events? I shook my head. No, those are jobs for people with experience. You have no experience. I pointed to the back of the room where Lily was stacking chairs. You start in housekeeping. Ava's jaw dropped. Housekeeping? Cleaning toilets? I added, and making beds, and vacuuming and dealing with rude guests who treat you like furniture. She stared at me. I said, if you want to learn how the world really works, you start at the bottom. You learn what it feels like to be invisible. You earn a paycheck. A real one if you stick with it for 6 months. If you show up on time and you don't complain and you treat the staff with respect, then we'll talk about a promotion, maybe front desk. My parents gasped. Melanie, you can't be serious. Your sister a maid? I said, it's up to her. You can go back home with mom and dad and pretend to be a princess until the money runs out, or you can build something real, like I did. Ava looked at our parents. She saw the desperation in their eyes. She saw how hollow they were. Then she looked at the staff working in the room, real people working hard. She looked back at me. She took a deep breath and asked, when do I start? I smiled, a real smile. Tomorrow, 7 a.m. Don't be late. The supervisor hates lateness. 1 year later, I'm standing on the balcony of the penthouse suite at the Grand Horizon. The city looks beautiful tonight. It's been a long year. My relationship with my parents is distant. We talk on holidays, and I send them gifts, but I don't let them in. I keep my boundaries. But Ava, she's been the surprise. She hated the first month. She called me crying every day. Her feet hurt. Her back hurt. She hated the uniforms. She hated cleaning up after messy guests, but she didn't quit. Somewhere around the third month, the phone calls stopped being complaints and started being questions. Why do we use this vendor for linens? It's too expensive. Or the check in process is too slow. I have an idea to fix it. She started to see the hotel not as a stage for her to perform on, but as a machine that needed to work. She made friends with Lily, the waitress from the engagement party. They went to lunch together. Ava apologized to her. Today, Ava is the assistant manager of housekeeping. She's tough, organized, and the staff actually respects her. Not because of her last name, but because she works harder than anyone else. There's a knock on the door. Come in, I call out. Ava walks in. She's wearing a gray suit, simple and professional. Her hair is tied back. She's not wearing a ton of makeup. She looks tired but happy. Hey, boss, she smiles. The quarterly reports are in. Housekeeping is under budget by 10%. I say, nice work. You're good at this. She says, I learned from the best. She walks over to the balcony and stands next to me. You know, she says, looking out at the city, I saw Ethan the other day. I ask, oh, how is he? She replies, he's working at a car dealership. He tried to talk to me, asked if I wanted to get coffee. I ask, what did you say? She laughs. I told him I was busy. I told him I had 17 hotels to help run. She bumps my shoulder with hers. Thank you, she says softly. For what? I ask. For not giving me money, she says, for giving me a mop instead. I look at my sister. The entitlement is gone. The cruelty is gone. In its place is something stronger, dignity. You earned it, Ava, I say. She checks her watch. Okay, enough sentimental stuff. We have a VIP checking in at 10. I need to make sure the room is perfect. She turns and walks out of the suite, her heels clicking on the floor, the sound of a woman with a purpose. I stay on the balcony for a moment longer. I think about the girl in the kitchen with the dirty apron. I think about the girl hiding behind the computer screen in her bedroom. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not the forgotten sister. I'm Melanie, and I'm the owner. And for the first time in my life, I'm not just building an empire of hotels. I'm building a family, a real one. I take a sip of my water, smile at the city lights, and go back to work.